Richmond is no small town, boasting a population of nearly 300,000. One could only imagine the eclectic mix of people and the many stories that have come and gone through the historic city. But George's story is unlike any others. His long history of recorded failures and outlandish outbursts have made him stand out in Virginia's capital. It's a daunting task to explain George Yarid to the layman, especially as briefly as I intend in this video. From the moment he was born, wherein his father named him George Alexander Yarid, or Gay by his initials, George has always been ripe for parody. His laughable blunders as an adult include getting himself kicked off public access television and radio, squandering a massive inheritance and his family's home to frivolous spending, and filing civil lawsuits against people who poke fun of him on the internet. He even recently had to drop his longtime moniker Gorgeous George and show title The Gorgeous George Show due to failing to secure a trademark for a show he's marketed for decades. George attempted breaking into the entertainment industry with his own public access TV show in Richmond, Virginia. Prank calls to public access were rampant at the time. George's show was no exception, with the first few prank callers who hit with quick jabs at his appearance or the sound of a toilet flushing.
Obviously, you like your women fat, don't you? You like your women very thick and juicy, don't you? Richard, on line 1 or line 2?
Line 1.
Talk to us, Richard.
You're fat.
Thank you. Your mama is. Thank you very much. And you know what? You had sex with your granny the other day, and she was very prolicious.
Hey, man, I just was wondering. I just had a couple of questions. Number one is, I was trying to take count, and I kind of lost count. How many chins do you have?
How many chins do you have? How many Slurpees or herpes that you have in your ass? How many snots do you have in your nose? Okay, you know, how many chins did I have? How many chins do you have?
Hi, George. How you doing?
Comments and questions tonight.
I just wanted to say happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
And then I also wanted to say that you're very fat.
Well, you know what? Brandon, you're on the air with us. Okay, I take the crap out of your mouth before you call next time.
Many other show hosts would brush past the pranking and move on, but George could not. He took the prank calls personally, and his rage and nonsensical comebacks attracted a larger audience of prank callers. George continued to feed the trolls as he spawned a group called the Goons who began studying, tracking, and getting involved in George's life outside of public access. One of the chief discoveries about George was his deep narcissistic personality disorder that drives the derelict minivan that is his being. This has enabled him to live like a tornado, destroying everything in his path. The Goon community's inner circle members have tracked George's comings and goings over the years and have pinpointed locations he frequented. These places became collateral damage to George's narcissism, and some never recovered. In this video, I aim to visit locations once inhabited by George to see if they still bear a scar, as a warning for those who might come into contact with GG in the future. The first stop on the tour is the most infamous. Just the numbers 1307 have a singular meaning in the Goon community. This tri-level residential in Henrico, bordering Richmond, is the former Yarid household in which George was raised from birth and inhabited through his mid-40s. 1307 was a precious Yarid heirloom, as it was built by George's father. This location has too much history for this video, but for a brief overview, George lived in 1307 with his father, George Sr., up until the senior went into the hospital to spend his final days succumbing to an illness. After his father passed, George inherited half of the house and would soon acquire the whole house after paying off an extended family member. Though George then owned the house outright, he took out a mortgage on it to add to his party funds. George would use a cadre of roommates over the years as a ploy to pay the new mortgage for him, most prominently a convicted sex offender with a history of violence against children. Despite that, he would still lose the house in foreclosure in 2017 as he had stopped paying the mortgage altogether and had filed bankruptcy as well. George's eviction was a celebratory event for the goons. 1307 would finally be free from Gigi's abuse. Those scars would soon become horribly evident in photos and videos released by the inner circle of the vacated home while it was in the realtor's hand. The shocking damage and disarray would serve as a warning to how George neglects the people and property around him, even when he is clearly meant to care about it. 1307 has since undergone serious renovation at the hands of new owners. After many years and I'm sure tens of thousands of dollars, the house once again resembles the charm of its neighbors in this quiet neighborhood. The library has long been a haven for homeless who need respite inside a quiet, climate-controlled building that doesn't charge its occupants. It's no shock that George has always been drawn to this location. While a large city like Richmond has many branches of their public library, we're specifically talking about the main branch, located downtown Richmond. For years, George used a studio in one of the rooms to record his public access show. He would also use the library computers as his resource for electronic communication and creating legal documents in his many lawsuits. The library is most famous for a recorded disturbance between Gigi and Michael Saunders, a former confidant. The confrontation spawned several celebrated moments in the Goon universe, such as Saunders asking George if he was having a diabetic shock, and Gigi using a Lysol bottle to threaten Saunders. The infamous corner where the confrontation took place remains mostly the same. While the furniture has been changed, the scenery is still similar enough that one can picture viewing that hallmark moment in person. The studio was shut down in 2020, and one can only speculate how the years of amateur production and negative responses the Gorgeous George show exhibited had contributed to its closure.
What kind of best I can give you, baby, as long as I give you? What kind?
I'm sorry. Start this again. Either shut up or get out of here. Start again. Start again. You don't like it? Look out of here. Break it up. I'm sorry. Start it up again.
Bullshit. Start it up again. I need you to start it up again. Raise it up, please. Raise it up. Raise it up. Raise it up. Raise it up. I can't hear it in here.
I can't hear it. I cannot hear it. Raise it up. Start again. Go to this loud again so we get it right. Start again. I'm sorry. Start again.
Ridiculous.
Dillard's is a department store chain with franchises across the U.S., primarily in the east-southeast parts of the country. Though otherwise insignificant, this store has long been the source of George's lampooned clothing.
The award for the worst of all of them goes to Mr.
George
Franklin.
Yarid.
If he'd only get a suit that fit. The trouble is, I don't think they make belts that big. I think there's just too many yards of flesh poured into too few inches of fabric.
It's not just his lawsuits that are laughable. George's business suits have also drawn criticism and ridicule from viewers. Gigi has boasted over the years that he buys fine tailored suits and he likes to wear loud clothing. He often brags that his formal wear was purchased from Dillard's. In reality, a Dillard's store is akin to a Kohl's or a J.C. Penney, just a mid-tier clothing store marketed to middle-class America. The defining facet of Gigi's fine clothing is his suits were bought many years ago, when George had money from the inheritance. Years of wear and poor maintenance has allowed the once expensive clothing to morph into thrift store quality rags. Regency Inn is a budget hotel popular for local residents without permanent lodging. Like most of its kind, the hotel offers cheap prices, without reservation for rooms and without any frills or luxuries. Though credited as a hotel, the Regency Inn has its rooms' doors accessible from the outside. It looks disheveled and attracts the suspect clientele one would assume. When George was kicked out of his house following foreclosure, he spent time floating from hotel to motel, paying by the night for the cheapest rooms available as a break from sleeping in his van. Regency Inn was particularly special to George because a bar called Rick's Rock Cafe had space in the building. George used the bar several times for his annual birthday bash, and is infamous as the location goons first learned about an on-again, off-again Gigi cohort who would betray George by giving the goons the manuscript for his autobiography before its publication.
And when they give this guy a little pressure, he folds like a cardboard box.
Though Regency Inn still operates, Rick's Rock Cafe has since closed its doors permanently.
And through it all, she offers me protection, a lot of love and perfection, whether I'm right or wrong, and down the waterfall.
A room at the Regency Inn cost $68. I rented for one night, filmed the interior, then left to sleep in my hotel. It was hard to imagine sleeping there. The outside world is just on the other side of a thin door.
Pedophile.
The now defunct Fielden's Party Palace was once a popular gay nightclub. George is an outspoken homophobe and desperately refutes any association with anything involving the gay community. It was discovered that George had worked at the club as a DJ, and he has since defended the action. Years later, a team of goons would create a weekly podcast covering George with the show titled Fielden's Party Palace. The Fielden's podcast became a central hangout for the goon community and has since evolved into what is now titled The Gorgeous George Show, with a trademark. The original Fielden's nightclub has long since shuttered its doors and permanently closed. To conclude the tour, we'll visit the contemporary mecca for goons at the Forest Lawn Cemetery. The graveyard is in a quiet North Richmond neighborhood and houses the burial plot for George Sr. Information uncovered over the years has revealed George Sr. to be as villainous as Gigi himself, with goons threatening various mischievous acts on the grave itself as retribution for Yarid victims. Thus, goons celebrate Senior's death, and with the loss of 1307, the cemetery has become a lightning rod for trolling. George has responded with ongoing threats to assault those who simply visit the cemetery, and has duly claimed that goons would be trespassing and subject to arrest for being on the grounds. George's obsessive protection of his father's gravesite has even led to him covering the gravestone with a tarp to stifle attempts to vandalize, though this would only accomplish killing the grass around the grave. I hope this has been educational. I only have one thing left to do, and pay my respects. This is Dr. Amir, signing off. Have a great day.